What is now time for weather with Nebraska Extension Ag climatologist and Market Journal chief meteorologist Al Duncher. Al, it's been a roller coaster week with lows in the low teens, or middle teens I should say, but highs back in the 80s. How are things shaping up for the next week?
Well, Bryce, yes, we did have a big roller coaster swing in temperatures, seen lows that got down into the lower 20s to the upper teens across the state. And this cold air mass pushed all the way to their south out into the Texas-Oklahoma range and all the way eastward into the lower Ohio River Valley. Now, we didn't see any precipitation as expected, but the temperatures were definitely cooler than normal during the first part of the week. We've seen this big warm up, and we continue to see the warm up this weekend. And now we have an impending storm system. Before we get to that, let's take a look at what the latest forecast is from CPC in regards to November conditions. And if we look at the model right now, they're indicating above normal conditions in terms of temperatures of the southwest extending up into the central plains, including Nebraska. Highest risk the southwestern 2/3 of the state. Now, as we go into the precipitation, below normal to our south, just a slight risk for below normal across the southeastern 1/3 of the state and above normal across the northern Rockies. So now as we go to the upper air model, the first thing we'll draw your attention to is that storm system out west. That trough has been fairly well advertised the last few days. Expected to swing through as we get into the later part of the weekend, but in advance of that, we're going to see southerly flow at the surface to southwesterly, very windy conditions, and temperatures statewide that should reach into the 80s and possibly will push as we get into the late afternoon, potentially the upper 80s across the southwest. As we go into tomorrow, this trough starts to make its way down toward the southern Great Basin, and then it will eject eastward. So we will start to see a cold front pushing through the state during the afternoon, evening hours. That may generate some thunderstorm activity across the southeastern part of the state, but it looks right now that most of the western part of the state will be caught in a dry slot with no precipitation. As we get into the day Monday morning, here's this trough going to start to lift rapidly toward the northeast, driving that cold front through. So this is our best chance for good moisture across western Nebraska, and it's probably just going to be a moderate rainfall event. Most of the precipitation will swing down through Texas with this upper air low as it cuts off and then swings toward the northeast. And we see is that as we get into Tuesday, start seeing the system cut off and then it will drift. That's going to cut off the moisture flow to our north temporarily. So we'll see the cooler conditions move in, back into those 50s and 60s across the state until the system itself moves over toward the Great Lakes. And so as we go into the day on Wednesday, the system starts to move into the mid-Mississippi River Valley. We see another trough digging down to the western United States. This has been a little bit stronger than was previously recorded. So we'll wait to see whether or not this verifies out, because this could potentially bring in some moisture as we go into next weekend. But we should start to see a rebound in temperatures as this low passes toward our east-southeast. As we go into Thursday, now we start to see this low moving up into the Ohio River Valley. We get this trough basically cutting into the Great Basin just like this last one. We're going to see a big swing in temperatures. Very warm conditions will start to develop late next week. Wouldn't be surprised we'll be right back up into the 70s. And as we get into the day on Friday, it takes us upper air low into the Dakotas. As this comes a little farther south, though, this could be a potential precipitation maker. Now, as we look at the 8 to 14 day forecast, it's taken into consideration the slowness of that trough moving in, so we still see above normal temperatures. And in terms of precipitation, slight tendency for drier than normal conditions, but a lot of moisture coming into the western United States. So hopefully this is a trend where we start to see these lows come out on a regular basis, and when we see some improvement in drought conditions across the state.